from Poland, from Stettin, Poland. He's on, and Laser Fingerer suggested he join us. He started to see Laser's Parsha videos, and he liked them, and they made a contact. And Laser, I solicited Laser to come learn with us again Chassidus, and he said until he gets to us, he's going to send to someone else. So we have Netzach Man from Poland, who is a substitute in addition to himself for Laser. Okay, page 198, bottom of the page. Kitzer. Let me just read the Kitzer. Yevayir demoach v'leiv b'shneim toli chayas adam. We learned that the brain and the heart, one's vitality, one's chayut, one's life force, depends on a head, on a mind, and on a heart. The hasoga shebe moyach tzricha lifol tikin hamidas shebe belev. Proper comprehension must impact a correction, a refinement of the emotions. For if one is very intelligent and knows lots and understands very well, but it doesn't result in bettering one's character, what's the purpose of that knowledge? In a way, it's a wasted knowledge. The purpose of the knowledge is to make you a nicer person. Yevayir, the Rebbe explained in the previous chapter, the previous Rebbe, Beis Madrega is Berusa Deliba. 2 levels. Actually, Moshe, we didn't finish the entire paragraph, I realized.
No, it's right. You're right. We did not.
Okay, we
stopped somewhere in the middle of that paragraph.
Okay, so let's go back. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the top. In the middle of the line, it says, Omnam, Zeu be'or v'chayas ha'nefesh shel ha'mayla me'or shel guf. No, next line, 8 lines, where it says, the berusa deliba. So, Avi, let me tell you what we learned towards the end yesterday. There's something called Ru'usa deliba. Ru'usa is the Aramaic word for the Hebrew word ratzon. Deliba is the Hebrew word for lev, the will of the heart. Chassidus brings this idea. There is a will of the heart that transcends logic, it transcends emotions. Logic and emotions, feelings and understanding is within the normal system of man. There is an aspect to a yid, to a man, to a person, which goes beyond that, where you get some kind of inspiration that's kind of illogical. It transcends logic. But you feel it's right. If everyone else is telling you it's wrong, and you feel it's right, and it's in your gut feeling, and as we say, in your kishkis, and someone says, explain to me why you're doing this, and you say, I don't have an explanation, but I know it's right. And I'm going to act upon it. That's called Ru'usa Deliba. So Ru'usa Deliba is a sensation that overtakes logic and even feelings. So I want to make this very clear. There is, Yonason, midos, emotions, feelings. But emotions, feelings are governed by logic. We're not talking about that, Moshe. We're not talking about just feelings. We're talking about some kind of transcendent feeling that's, some people will call it intuition. Some people will call it, an inspiration that's out of body, like, the different ways of expressing it. Kabbalah uses the words Re'usa Deliba. For example, Rosh Hashanah, where you blow the shofar, and the purpose is to evoke the essence of God to want to be our king. Right? Chassidus explains that what's really taking place is we're creating the Re'usa Deliba, this will of the heart that transcends everything that we've done throughout the year. Because if we go back and we look at the year and we see checks and we see X's, the king is not interested so much in being a king over people who have more X's than more checks. So how is it that we on Rosh Hashanah are able to arouse Hashem to be our king if we have lots of zeros. And 0 times 0 equals 0. So how can 0 times 0 equal 1, equal Hashem? So Chassidus explains, because you touch the shofar, the call of the shofar is coming me'umka de liba, from the depths of the heart, meaning from deep down, from a place that's ru'usa de liba, the arousal of the heart, the will of the heart, which is not the average normal heart. And that's dormant in a person, in the subconscious of a Jew. And when the Yid, good morning Shmuel, and when a Yid blows the shofar, he touches that nakuda, that point. And that point touches the nakuda atzmis, the essential point of Hashem, and Hashem says, Ano emloich, I will be your king. So using that as a mashal, we bring it back here, that the Rebbe says, 8th line, page 198, the Berusa de Liba had a yesh by Beis Madregis. Within the Rusa de Liba, within the will of the heart, there are 2 levels, Aleph. The first is, Harausa de Liba haba yedei hisbonenus. It's a Reusa de Liba that's generated through meditation. When you have a strong hisbonenut, meditation, reflection, it develops a strong will of your heart. V'hagam daharotzin hu rotzin atzmi. This is a rhetorical remark, although the rotzin that we're talking about, the Reusa de Liba, the will, that level of will, is what Chassidus calls an essential will. It's not generated because someone else wants something. It's who you are. It's your deep subconscious coming out now. So what do you mean that his bonus, that meditation generates it? So the Rebbe says immediately, Avo. Moshe, here again, you hear the Hagam. The Hagam is demonstrative of the rhetorical question. Avol is already the retort to the rhetorical question. Avol, who ba yedei is bonus. The Rebbe says, you're right. It's in the subconscious. It's in your essence. But how is it revealed? How does it come out? It takes his bonus, meditation. When you reflect on how God is he pervades all worlds, he surrounds all world, he's the essence of the world. And there's nothing besides him. And all the other concepts that we learn and we talk about in Chassidus to meditate upon, to reflect on in a deep way, not just a cursory way. His bonus is deep concentration, not mellow, shallow concentration. That's not his bonus. That's understanding. His bonus, meditation, any form of meditation, its essence is a deep, concentrated, focused concentration on an issue. So the Rebbe says that when you have that, when you engage in that activity, it brings out what you have in your essence, which is the Reusa de Liba. Rak, she's bonus who be'irin sof shelamayla b'shtalshalos. What are you reflecting on, Yoni? What's the content of my hisbonenus? On concepts of God as God transcends the universe, the world. The content of the hisbonenus is about God as God transcends the world. But where? What's the container for that hisbonenus? The brain and the heart. So the heart is aroused and says, I want to have a relationship with Hashem. I need to understand better who I am, who God is, what's the purpose. So there's an arousal, an awakening. We call that Hisaydus Alev. And finally, after the Hisaydus Alev, that Hisaydus Alev, what does it do? It then wakes up the cup. You start understanding. Wait a minute. Is Hashem here or not? Yesh mi ayin. Something from nothing. So who is the God, the Yesh or the Ayin? The ayin. Well, if he's ayin, why is he called God? He's nothing. What does that mean? And if he's here, in what manner is he? Is he close or he's distant? And these are thoughts that we think about. This is a healthy hisbonenus. And ultimately, what's the toichin, the content of that hisbonenus? About Oyer Ein Sof, Hashem, in his infinity, in his essence. So the place in which the content of God is held is in the container, the keli, is the moach and the heart. But the tochin, the content, the meat and potatoes of what's in there is about a level of God that transcends. This is all one aspect of Re'usa Deliba. The Rebbe now goes further. V'habeis. There is a level of Rusa Deliba, the will of the heart, that he harotzen ho'atzmi sheb'neshama. Here, even his bonanus, meditation, is lacking the ability to touch the very essence. You know, you wake up in the morning, you say, I have to be a new person. You know, something happens and you make a decision which is like totally not you. Rotzen atzmi, and you're very passionate about it. And nothing stops you from doing it. You have that will and that drive. And you can't say that the will and the drive is generated by your meditation. And because you meditated and you reflected and you aroused your heart and the day before and 2 days before and all that, and you didn't come to this decision and this determination. So obviously, what is it that gets you something very deep, deeper than all deep? And we call that, let's go to the Maamar's words, harotzen ha'atzmi shebeneshama, the essential will of the soul. V'hu be'etzem haneshama, it is in the essence of the soul, k'moshehi b'skashruso ha'atzmi, as the soul is bound in its essential connection, ba'atzmo se'yisof baruch hu, to the essence of God. U'k'Maamar, he cites the statement, chavuka udvuka boch, it is attached and bound to you, to God. The cholze who be yoyed v'chayis hanefesh, k'moshu l'mayla miyoyed v'chayis hanefesh ha'paslabish b'guf. Says the Rebbe, all of this is about a level of the neshama that's beyond investing itself in the guf. That the soul, that part of the neshama yoni, that's in our guf, in our body, doesn't experience this. It doesn't experience this. It's why? Because its purpose and its mission is not to experience this. We're here every day. We get up. We have a Seder Hayoim. We have our work, right? You don't need to have this experience that he's talking about to function daily. So to begin with, what aspect of godliness does the Eibishter give to the neshama that it has its mission for daily? And what is that? Learn, daven, think, do mitzvahs, be an Oved Hashem. That's it. When you talk about something that is transcendence, that breaks all barriers, that you weren't able to do, you were stuck in a rut, you had this regilut, this habit, you can't break a habit. Here you need something much deeper. Here you need Rotzen Atzmi. So the Rebbe says that these levels of Re'usa Deliba, whether it's level 1 or level 2, are not invested in the guf. This is all a long answer to a question. What was the question, Moshe? The question is, how can we say that the head is higher than the body? If we're talking about the essence, they're all the same. That was his question. It was rhetorical, but that was his question. And his answer finally is, it depends on what level of the soul you're talking about. If you're talking about the level of the soul, that is what? That is invested in the guf. There are distinctions. A head, a body, midos, emotions. and regel, and feet. 1, 2, and 3. There's a rabbi, a gabbai, and a congregant. There is a seder, there is order. Just last night I was speaking to what?
I said it sounds like a joke. A rabbi,
a gabbai, and a congregant. It sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke. Last night I davened the Maamar very late at Shomer Shabbos, and I met an old Lubavitcher that I haven't seen in 5 years. And he said he was a gabbai sheni in a Chabad shul, but now someone who was in charge of the shul went to Muncie because of COVID, and the shul is like falling apart, and he showed, a lack of interest in being gabbai sheni. There's a breakdown. When you don't have a system, when the leader takes a hiatus, for whatever reason, and there's a breakdown in the system. So in the system of shul, in the system of normalcy, we have a head, we have a heart, and we have feet. And is there a distinction between the three? Absolutely. The Rebbe once spoke a Sicha Shmuel, it's printed in the Likutei Sichos. The Rebbe said in this Sicha, he learned a lesson from Moshe Rabbeinu and the Yidden. He says, it's true that Moshe says, I am Anochi Bekir, I stand here today amongst the 600,000 foot soldiers, foot walkers, right? But the Rebbe said, nevertheless, he is Moshe Rabbeinu. He is your leader. He is your rabbi. Moshe Rabbeinu, because of his humility, is giving credit to all the people. That's true. Absolutely. But does he lose the status of Moshe Rabbeinu? No. And therefore, people must know that the one who makes the decisions is the Moshe Rabbeinu. The one who makes the decisions, spiritual decisions in a shul, is a rav, a rabbi. You can have a board, and they can decide what color carpet to have and what color chairs to have. But the spiritual decisions is up to the rav. And a shul that doesn't work this way, yehi lehem asher lehem. Because then you're going to have every balabas and every group deciding, and it becomes very, very chaotic. But I don't want to get into that right now. I'm just bringing a dugma, an example of how there needs to be seder. And the same is in the family. There's a father and a mother. There are children. And then there is grandchildren, and there's a behavior, and then there's a system. And in our religion, in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, the system is most important. Most important is the system. A family that eats together stays together. What's the pshat? It's not just breaking bread together. There is a system where you come to a table and you have a father and a mother, or if the father's only there or the mother's there for whatever reason. So what does this child see? That, this is my figurehead, this is my father, my mother, it creates a system. And just parenthetically, that's why today, those families that for whatever reason they fail in the system, there's more issues later on. Issues are issues, okay? But there is a structure. Structure is healthy. I'm saying all this because the Rebbe says here at the end that when you talk about the oir hamislabish beguf, the neshama hamislabish beguf, he says, then we can understand the difference between rosh, guf, and regel. When you talk about transcendence, then they're all the same. So I just spent some time saying that the regular, normal way is the system, and we have to understand that the system is another way to say it. Chassidus says, Shmuel, the word hishtalshelus. A word that's repeated thousands and thousands of times in any Maamar from any of the Rabbeim. Hishtalshelus. Why make a big deal about Hishtalshelus? Hishtalshelus means the progression of the way the God's energy comes from on high to low. Why make such a big issue? Go straight to God. Go straight to the essence. The answer is because Hashem himself chose and sanctioned and blessed and wants hishtalshelus. The Rebbe says this in a footnote in Likutei Sichos Chelik Vav. when he talks about the essence of God versus the manifestation of God, the Rebbe says a line in Yeshiva. I remember we were all into this concept and we were talking a lot about it with our mashpiyim, that the giluyim, the word for manifestation in Hebrew in Chassidus is giluyim, from the word gilui, revelation. That the giluyim themselves are sanctioned by atzmus, by the essence. So then the giluyim have a different connotation. It's no longer a system. Yonis and Bates, wake up, because this is very gewaldic. You learned this in Yeshiva. I'm refreshing your memory. That the giluyim are no longer just, my whim, the neshama's decision, and things like that. No. The giluyim themselves become part of the essence, because the essence wants giluyim. So Hashem wants Seder. It's not Seder because, like we've discussed, I have a certain type of personalities, so I like getting up early. Another person has another personality, he likes being proper. And the other third person wants to be neat. And the fourth person wants to be scattered. So you'll say, that's individual choices. That's individual choices if you make the choice. But when you understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants system, and system is as holy as transcendence, then system is something very different. In 1944, the Rebbe's father, Rebbe Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, passed away. And the Rebbe was in America in Crown Heights, right? So he needed to daven for the Yomid. And the Rebbe worked at the time at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So the Gabbai of the shul, I think, was Rabbi Yochanan Gordon, Rabbi Yoshua Gordon's Zayda, his grandfather. Josh Gordon's grandfather, yeah. And he was a chassid from Lubavitch, and he had the yichus and he had the background. So the Rebbe came to him and he said, Rabbi Yochanan, what time is Shachris? What time is Shachris? Because the Rebbe was going to daven for the Yomid. So he said, 9:30 to 9:35, I think that he said two numbers that was a difference of 5 minutes. And the Rebbe turned to him and he said, Rabbi Yochanan, is it 9:30 or 9:35? Now, some will say, the Rebbe was very proper. That's totally wrong. Totally wrong. It's because system is elikus, is sanctioned by Hashem. It's godliness. And if a minyan needs to start 9:30, the Rebbe taught us and taught himself and be there, and was starting on time. Whether I myself like that or I'm such a person makes no difference. The system is godly, and I want to adhere to the system. Rabbi, another example. There's a shliach that Shmuel and I know from California, Rabbi Moshe Yosef Engel in Long Beach, California. He's been there since the early 70s. Very fine yid. So I heard that he learned many of his years in the Montreal Chabad Yeshiva in Montreal. So I heard that someone saw the mashgiach who, checks in and checks out when boys come in and go out, as far as coming on time, that in his name, in his record, there was never a day that he came late to 7:30. Chassidus and Chabad Yeshivas starts at 7:30. He never had an ex. He had a check every day for 4 or 5 years, as long as he was there. So some will say, and we know him, that's his style. It's true, that's his style. But there's something that's overriding and greater than the style is the connection to Seder, because it's a godly thing. And this is the hardest thing you ask about, in Chassidus itself. The hardest thing is to have Kabbalah soil. It's very hard. And that's why I think I told you there was a chassid, Reb Nissen Nemenov, amongst the chassidim and the mashpiyim of the past generation. And older chassidim, by 10 to 20 years, when they would come to a Fabrengen, and he was there, and really they should be the speakers because they're so much older, they have seniority, they sat quietly. Because he excelled in Kabbalah soil more than them. They might have been smarter, they knew how to learn better, but when it came to Seder Kabbalah soil, no one beat him. He was a soldier. And it's the hardest thing. Because understanding and learning is exciting. Feeling is more exciting. So if you daven with feelings, and you daven over the time, gewaldig. You learn Chassidus, you learn Gemara, you learn Shulchan Aruch, and you get into a topic, and the clock, you don't realize, gewaldig. That there's someone that says, that's all gewaldig, but did you come at 7:30 or 7:31? Oh, that. Hats off to such a person, if someone's able to do that. It's the hardest thing. So I'm saying all this, I took a little time, just to, yes, Shmuel.
I think that's what we say in Shemona Esrei. One of the brothers would say, Melech Oyev Tzedakah Mishpat. Mishpat, I think, is a system.
Right, that's good, very good. Melech Oyev Tzedakah Mishpat and system. Okay, Kitzer. Yevayer, the Moyach V'Leiv B'Shneim Tolui Chayas Ha'Adam. The mind and the heart, one's chayas, one's vitality, one's life force depends on that. The hasoga sheba moyach, when one comprehends something, tzricha lifoil tikir hamidas belvad. It has to impact the emotions of the heart. It has to make a change in your character. Yevaya beis madreges bedrusad liba. We explained two different levels in the will of the heart, the will that transcends, which we discussed. Umailus halev berusa deliba, the virtue of the heart that feels this will of the heart. Umailus hamoyach baskola vasoga, and what's the virtue of the mind? Comprehension. Let's continue. V'hinei ches, chapter 8. Just as the neshama, the soul, that pervades the body, that comes into the body. Generally speaking, we divide it into three categories: head, body, and feet. So too, when we talk about the worlds, the spiritual worlds, we divide them into three categories. Bria, the world of creation. 2, Yetzira, the world of formation. And 3, Asiya, the world of action. V'hagam dichsiv. Again, Moshe, hagam, rhetorical. A rhetorical question. V'hagam, and although dichsiv, it's written, v'alomois ein mispor, there is no number to the worlds. So Yoni, what does it mean that there's 3? Bria Yasir Asiya, there's a verse that says, Va'alamos ein mispor. Al tikra, so the Zohar says, don't read it. Va'alamos ela de oilamois. Ve'oilamois. That va'oilamois, the worlds, ein mispor, shehem oilamois beli shiru mispor klal. In other words, how many worlds are there? Ein mispor, Adam Fanayim. There is no number. There's a numberless amount of worlds. So the Zohar interprets just the opposite of the literal meaning. Nevertheless, says the Flighty Rebbe, generally speaking, mischalkim, we do divide them into three worlds, categories, Bria, Tzira, Asiya. In other words, again, we have to systemize and categorize and organize for us to function and be able to capture the picture. So for that purpose, it's important, and it's really important. And he says, as the saying goes, Abba Ilah, top of page 199. Abba Ilah, the supernal Father, Mikanana, rests Bikursaya, in the chair, in the throne. You know where the throne is? No, yes, Shmuel. I'm sorry, Ima. Thank you. Ima Ilah, the supernal mother, which is Bina, Mekanana, rests Bikursaya, in the throne. It has a nice big throne. What is that? The world of Bria. Because the world of Atzilus is standing. That's why, Chevra, why do we stand, Avi, by Shemona Esrei? Well, people will tell you, why do we stand? Because we're asking Hashem, and it's But why? Why can't you ask Hashem sitting down? So Kabbalah says, because the level of Shmon Esrei is Atzilus, the world of emanation. You're closest to God. And when you're close to God, you don't sit, get off your chair. God's in front of you. Stand up. Amida. What about the next world, Bria, the world of creation? There, we know it's Shema. Shema, halacha says, should be said while sitting. Why? It requires hisyashvut, settlement, calmness, reflection. The world of Bria, in comparison to the world of Atzilus, on one hand, it's a lower realm. It's after Atzilus, but at the same time, it has something that Atzilus doesn't have. And what is that? The settlement. There's a virtue to settlement over I won. I'm on top. You can be on top many times and no one comes along with you and they don't like you. But when you settle, people can relate to that more. So there is a virtue to this and a virtue to that. But going back to the piece of Zoyar, Ima Ilah Bina, the mother, a mother is soothing. A mother soothes the baby, calms the baby, knows how to deal with a screaming baby. A father becomes cuckoo, nervous, upset. But a mother is very soothing. Ima Ilah, the supernal mother, Bina, where is its resting place? Mekanano bekursaya. It dwells, it rests in the cradle, in the throne, in a position of settlement. The mother is able to get that to be special. Let me just finish this line. V'shit Svirin, and the 6 Svirot of Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, those 6, B'Yetzira, they are found, their domain, their home, their hub is Yetzira, the world of formation. And finally, Malchus, royalty, regality, kingship, Ba'asiyah. Where is that? In action. Right? In action. We'll stop here, but the point that the Rebbe is beginning to explain is the reconciliation between saying that there's an infinite amount of worlds, and at the same time, there's a category of 3. And we'll get back to that tomorrow. Moshe, you want to say something?
Yeah, Rabbi Dalton, when you say settlement, there's a virtue to settlement. Do you also mean, let's say, when I think of settlement, I think of practically like compromise. Do you mean the same thing? Would you is that the same? I'm trying to relate to that.
I would say that that's an extension of settlement. But it's not. Don't limit it to compromise. In other words, compromise has a. Tell me if you think what you think. But I think compromise, the English word compromise, has a positive and a negative connotation. What's the negative? I didn't get my way, so I'm making a compromise. That's not what we mean here. We mean here, to begin with, the world of Bria sees settlement as the best, not as a second best.
So, settlement just on a practical level.
So maybe I'm not using the best word, but go ahead. Maybe, the idea is, in Hebrew the word is hisyashvut, hisyashvus, calmness, peacefulness, tranquility. Okay, so maybe the word settlement isn't the best word.
Okay.
The point, Moshe. What?
Yishuv Adas.
Yishuv Adas. Yeah, so Yishuv Adas. Moshe, you know what Yishuv Adas means?
Yeah.
Settled.
Sorry. Oh, that's better. Avi, very good. Moshe, did you hear what he said? Right. It's not settlement.
I heard,
Settled.
I heard, but I'm just going back to the example that you said something very interesting. You said that people, you said, and I think it's very true. There's a lot of truth to that. That the person comes out on top. That may be good for him, but he may not have anybody there with him to. And the comment about the people can relate much more to, you use the word settlement. So I like that, in other words, but I'm just trying to understand that that's Yeshuva Das is of course that's great, but that doesn't necessarily, how does that connect to the other person?
Okay, so again, we're talking here about, let's not lose Bria. We're talking about the world of Bria. And the Zohar is saying that the Ima Ilah, Bina, the Bina, understanding, where is its domain, its hub? It's in Bria. Yeah. Right? Bina is in Bria. Mekanana bekursaya. Right? So I'm explaining why is that? Because when a person's mind is Bina, not Chochmah, not Das, not creativity. Creativity is all jumpy and very exciting. Again, let's go back to the mashal that Rabbi Cantor brings that I love so much. The flying bird versus the rooted tree. The rooted tree you can count on today and tomorrow. The flying bird soars on high, it's exciting, but it can get lost and blown away and you never see it again. Creativity is gewaldic for those who are creative, but they don't have the virtue of being settled, of rooted, okay? So that's why a healthy company needs a CEO who's strong in creativity, or someone under him, whoever is the brain behind the company, and then it needs a gewaldige accountant, and it needs a gewaldige manager, people that can take the genius ideas and make them rooted and keep system. Because if you don't have that, you can have the greatest ideas, your company will end. And we've seen this, and we see this. I remember they said about Rabbi Moshe Herson of the Rabbinical College that Yonis and I learned in Morristown, and I know him, that he was a very settled type of person. You know, let's say Rabbi Kunin, Rabbi Kunin is, but he's all over. He's explosive, right? But he couldn't do what Herson did, and Herson couldn't do what he did. What did Herson do? He managed the team. He was able, because of his personality, his settled personality, his Bina personality, he related very well to others, and he orchestrated an entire staff. And I know them both, and I knew their staff. You know what I'm saying? So there's a Maila in the Bina versus the Chochmah. But we can talk about the virtue of Chochmah over Bina, which is creativity. In other words, what it took Rabbi Herson 10, 15 years, it took Kunin 1 year. I mean, but it was wild. It was Shmuel and I were there, in the early 80s, $17 million in debt, doing all kinds of things. Shmuel knows probably more of the inside than I do. And it has its pluses and its minuses. There's no one can say this is bad and this is good. They're both good and both have each, and a person has to decide what's my comfort level and who am I. Chevra, I want to, those a few people weren't on, we have a new student on called Netzach. Netzach, you want to come on and show your face so Shmuel can see you? And Yoni? Netzach?
Yes.
So welcome Reb Netzach here. Reb Netzach is sitting now in Stettin, Poland, and Avi Fingerer Shmuel sent him as a replacement for himself to join our shir, because I reached out to Avi, to Laser Fingerer, and he said, and I asked Netzach how he knows about Laser. He said he started to see his Parsha videos. You see? What are you? So Avi, I want to give you the chizuk that you should continue making your videos, and other chevra here. Today, it's a social media world, and you don't know who in the world is looking at your video and can be inspired and can end up learning Chassidus with us in the morning, in the afternoon. So Netzach, Nezach, did you follow? Did you follow what I taught today?
Yeah, well, for me it was a bit out of context, but I think I did get the basic points.
Okay, well, look,
After all, that's the first lecture.
Yeah, hang in there, and you'll hang. And also, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to our group than just the lecture. We create a chabura, a friendship, a group. It's very important to have that in one person's life. So stick with us, and you'll be all right. Okay?
Absolutely.
Zaygasm to everyone. Have a great day. See everyone tomorrow. Bye bye.
Thank you.